And so it's that time again to go around the world of business in 55 minutes. Good afternoon. Welcome to Business Incorporated. Here's what we have for you on the program today. Well, we'll take a closer look at those counsels and predictions from the IMF to Nigeria, see where it fits in, especially when it has to do with subsidies. And in Ghana, inflation quickens to 23.5% from 23.2%, where it was in December 2023. It's an expensive Valentine, according to Laddie Williams, who went out to see how Valentine is being celebrated today, how it's affecting businesses. Well, nice to see Laddie eating right there. We'll get back to him when he gets back to the studio. Happy Valentine's to you. Good afternoon. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's delve into business now. And we begin from what's going on in the global space this afternoon. Telling you about that, the International Energy Agency forecasts that global oil market should remain comfortable this year as new supply satisfy demand and keep them in check. The price is right there, $82.66 a barrel for Brent, and for WTI, it's $77.84. All right, from there we go to what's going on in the global grain space. I'm telling you that the gain for the weather, which is a major contributor to the grains there, we see wheat is in the red. They lost some percentage, 0.4%, to close at $5.95 for a quarter of a bushel. Soybeans is 0.7% in the red and at $11.78 for a quarter of a bushel. Corn, 0.3% in the red at $4.29. Well, still staying, of course, around what's going on in the global space. Let's see what's going on with metals now, with the price of metals. And of course, we've seen that the dollar, after yesterday's CPI from the United States, we've seen a lot of movement with the metals generally. Gold is unchanged, $1,992.21. Silver dropped just slightly, 0.2% at $22.04. And palladium is also down at $882 right there. All right, so back home in Nigeria, we see more collaborations to boost foreign direct income. This time around, the focus is on the diaspora community. So it's a collaboration between NIDCOM and the Ministry of Trade Investment in the country. The continuous migration of Nigerians to countries perceived as greener pastures does not have to be to the detriment of the economy. The Nigerians in Diaspora Commission boss, Mrs. Abike Dabrierewa, says that this group of Nigerians have already started investing in ICT, agriculture, education, among others. However, the opportunities have not been maximized because of a missing platform.
So, Honorable Minister, a few demands or a few requests we're making to you. Number one is that we need to have a diaspora desk in the Ministry of Trade and Investments. We have a diaspora policy that actually says that MDAs that are relevant to what we're doing should have a diaspora desk. So we're hoping that under your leadership, we have that diaspora desk as a focal point for everything diaspora investments that will be happening in Nigeria. And Honorable Minister, I tell you, you'll be very proud of what Nigerians in the diaspora have been doing and will continue to do.
The request seems to be in line with existing plans of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment.
What you've said, everything you've described is also in line with our own investment initiatives and policies. And we want to assure you that we will work collaboratively together. We will do all that we can. In fact, you might even be tired of us because, you know, we are like charging, and for us, all we're thinking is how do you turn around this economy? The hardship is biting. people are feeling every single thing, and we knew we were going to be here. I mean, we did not inherit the robust economy. We knew what we inherited, but it was a promise that brought us here.
With about 14 Nigerians holding political offices in the United States alone, a Nigerian recognized as the richest immigrant in the United States. Also, among other parts of the world, Honorable Erewa and Dr. Anite believe that this corporation holds a huge potential to contribute to both investment and diaspora remittances into the country. More corporations there to boost foreign direct income into the country. Now it's Valentine's Day and things may be hard or expensive, but they're still Valentine. And according to Ladi Williams' findings, people are still going out. But as I added in the morning, it's not just about your other half. Let's share the love everywhere. Ladi did enjoy a bit of that in this report.
It's Valentine's Day. Lovers globally are celebrating today. It's time for you to take that significant other out, find ways to show them love, at this time. But with the cost of living crisis, food inflation over 33%, definitely is getting really expensive to show love. So I'm going to be speaking with a restaurant owner. That's the owner of Koa Lagos, Temitokwe Akogo. She's going to be telling me all about Valentine spending, what to expect compared to the same period last year. All right, let's go.
Mrs. Temitokwe Akogun is a 29-year-old multifaceted entrepreneur with a passion for driving social change through enterprise. I and Temitokwe sat down to get a feel of what businesses expect this Valentine.
Thanks for coming, and I'm excited about this chat. In terms of this year, we have a couple of reservations, and we're still looking forward to some last-minute ones. One thing I've noticed is even though it's there's a lot of hardship in the land, people will still treat themselves when they need to.
I know most restaurants, pay a lot to aesthetics. They pay a lot of attention. They pay for it to make it look pleasing. And at the end of the day, you find some customers are attracted to whatever, aesthetics you have. And sometimes some just want to come take pictures.
There's a gap in the market for things like this in this area. You see things like this mostly on the island. And there was definitely a need for something like this to come to the mainland, because there are lots of places you can just go and eat, but they're not necessarily like celebratory places. They don't look that nice for photos and all. And let's be honest, it's nice to be in a space that is cozy and beautiful. But the challenge comes when people just want to take photos. We have some people that come and just order a drink, and they can be here for hours, just taking pictures, moving around, from one place to the other, one table to the other, messing up our cutlery, making us rewash stuff. But what we've done now is to just put like a minimum spend in place.
So this table looks amazing. Like it just feels like everything is here, at this point. So I'm gonna dig in now. I hope you don't get too hungry, at this point watching this. So I'm just gonna take a bite, get the sink in.
We have to squeeze all of that food out of Ladi when he comes back to the studio. How dare he try to make us hungry this afternoon. But happy Valentine's to you, and we do wish you a pleasant celebration today and, of course, every day. Now, let's go back to our reality. It might be Valentine, but we still have a lot of macroeconomic issues to handle. And we've seen the International Monetary Fund has been speaking a whole lot about what they think about how issues of the economy, Nigeria's economy, should be handled. The latest is that they're asking the federal government to eliminate subsidy, all subsidy for petrol and for electricity. And on Business Morning, we did replay that track of Mr. Femi Falana, who is very angry about that. And there are other suggestions by the International Monetary Fund. This is what they do. They suggest and try to advise government. But of course, it's up to the government of every country to decide on the direction to take. We've seen a lot of applause following the removal of subsidy, I say. of subsidy and some other reforms, unification of the FX by the current administration. But let's delve into all of this now with the Managing Director of Optimus by AfriInvest, Mr. Ayodiji Ebo, to look at some of this counsel. Mr. Ebo, good afternoon and thank you for your time.
Yeah, good afternoon, and it's great to be here.
Right. So IMF has given Nigeria a lot of attention these days, but not just Nigeria, but at least we'll stay here. And I think the one that's caught attention and generated a lot of conversation at this time is their request that the federal government totally remove subsidy on petrol and electricity. And of course, seeing how things are now, a lot of people are not happy about this because we know, of course, there's still subsidy on petrol, which is why with a change in global oil prices, we do not see a corresponding change in the price of oil right here. We see change in the FX rate, and it does not also reflect. So obviously, there's somebody paying for it somewhere, but I don't think Nigerians want to hear this at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think to be candid, it's not advisable to totally remove this subsidy now. I've always advocated for a phased removal. So and you would see why government is also backtracking on total removal now is seeing the major shock that was sent into the system when the sudden removal for fuel subsidy was announced. Yeah, so I think that with the current reality of things, people are still trying to even stabilize from the impact of FX, which has not stabilized. FX used to be one of the, we used to have three major areas we pay subsidy: FX, petrol subsidy, and energy. So I think that this can be faced. A total removal or elimination would further put the masses into serious problem. Given the current situation, inflation is already high at 28.9% as of December. So what IMF, yes, can always recommend, but we also need to look at our economic reality. We have to look at the peculiarity of our economy. So with the current like the admitted subsidy is still currently being paid at current level, but it has reduced significantly given where we're coming from. So if there's going to, it has to be planned. If there's going to be a phased removal, what are the things that needs to be put in place before that removal will be done? And there needs to be a clear channel. So if we come to the electricity sector, for instance, the prices have almost been fixed. There's what we call the minor review, the major review. All those agreements have not been followed. If they have been followed, there will be no need for a massive removal that is being clamored for now. So there's a need to be a roadmap. You're sitting down with the stakeholders within that space, especially the electricity sector. That sector cannot survive with this current gap in subsidy payments. And it will also impact on the government. So, but if we can all see that roadmap, that within the next 2 years, it will be phased out. And this is what would be done with the savings from the subsidies. It will also encourage even the electricity, either the discos, that distribution companies, to also access funding or the generation companies to expand and to be able to provide more stable electricity within the country.
Yeah, well, interesting there, talking about the phasing out of, the subsidy. But I guess one of the things that will shock Nigerians, I guess, and maybe they have gone past that level now, is perhaps painting the right picture. Because if you ask an average Nigerian, they will tell you the president said subsidy is gone. So why would you even talk about payment of subsidy anymore? Because in the future, if the people should try to task the federal government, at least to say, you haven't done this, you haven't done it, the federal government can say, oh, because we're servicing subsidy. And yes, the last announcement we heard about subsidy, at least for petrol, is that subsidy is gone. So perhaps where a place to start with would be to paint the right picture for Nigerians to know we cannot afford to totally remove subsidy, so it's still costing the country this. This is the plan. At this phase, we hope to do this after providing this. Maybe painting the full picture will make the pain bearable.
Okay, thank you. So, the idea, the announcement of the removal was made on the inauguration date. And maybe after that, within few weeks, it was totally removed. I think that was not fully planned. And that we saw the major shock that is sent into the system, especially within the economy. Transportation costs increased significantly and impacted on the cost of items. So I think now the reality, government have also come back to the table to see that a total removal will be unbearable for Nigerians now. And and painting the picture is that you would see that the cost of items, the transportation cost, everything still moves by road here in Nigeria. Yes, for most of the, some vehicles use diesel, which is not subsidized. But even the SMEs, most people use petrol, small gens to power their businesses. The cost is high. So what I think what we should focus on is that with the removal, can government also now prove to us the savings from that removal? What has it been channeled into? Then I was always advocating that there should be like a subsidy fund. Then we used to have the Petroleum Trust Fund where you see buses in schools. I remember those days. They build buildings for schools. So if we have subsidy funds and we can say we'll save 3 trillion, we'll save 4 trillion, and these are the projects, the roads that's being used for the infrastructure. So I think there will be no concern about that removal. Definitely is not sustainable, but there's a need to plan it before phasing it out, especially the petrol subsidy, because it impacts on everything from transportation costs to the cost of item, which would also increase cost of living.
So I think one of the things that has made the news since the removal of the subsidy is that we've seen allocation FAC. It's gone up. I think it's gone up about 200% according to some economists. From June up until now, and we've also seen both the federal and the state governments attempt to buffer some of the impacts. We've heard conversation of palliatives, of CNG buses, but in spite of all this, it doesn't seem like it's really touching where, we would have expected it. What do you think can be done, even for this phasing out of the subsidies that you have suggested? What are some of the buffer and the plans that can be put in place, to embark on that journey?
Okay, thank you. I think, first of all, speaking to the FAC allocation, one of the major reasons for the major significant increase we are experiencing in FAC allocation is exchange rate. If you check last year, the benchmark, when you look at the official rate, was, I would say, maybe around maybe 500, 600 within the official market. And now it's almost at 1.5. So even if it's the same dollar revenue that is being shared, that is over 100% increase. So that's one of the major reasons for that. Yes, the savings from subsidy can also be responsible for it, but there's a need to ring-fence. It's like, I'll use this example. Yeah, you have been working and you just received a raise, an increase in salary. When we talk about finance, and you advise people that increase should not be spent immediately. You can put that increase aside because you have been surviving without that increase that you've gotten. Or maybe a better example is a windfall that you receive. So you put that aside and you're able to save it or you invest it. So what I think should be done is that savings that we are getting from subsidies, let it be ring-fenced. Let a fund be set up, and it should be used for projects. Yes, all the CNG gas projects, yes, they are laudable, but that will not solve the medium to long-term problem. We need more good roads. We need the rail system to work, and these funds can be used as counterpart funding. Government doesn't have the resources to make all these things happen, but they can use the funds to partner with private sector to ensure that this thing happens within a short period, because time is of the essence. Things are getting tougher by the day, and the more we delay, the more it will require resources. You look at some of the projects, assuming we keep records, some of the projects that would have been completed if it was supposed to take $10 million, convert it to Naira now, those projects would cost more than ×2 to complete those projects. So it's better to just outsource it to private investors, let them complete this project, and let us begin to enjoy. It will unlock a lot of opportunities, and we'll begin to enjoy those benefits. So I think the medium to long term should be the focus.
All right, thank you so much for that suggestion. More of PPP, even though we know it's already in existence. Thank you so much, Mr. Ayodejebo, the Managing Director of Optimus by AfriInvest.
Thanks for having me.
Let's take a break now. When we come back, federal government interventions with MSMEs, how effective are they? We'll be discussing that after the break. Please stay with us. In the midst of all the high cost of living, jobs and empowering small businesses could be a way out. So let's discuss federal government interventions with MSMEs and job creation with a Senior Special Assistant to the President on Job Creation and MSMEs, Mr. Temitola Adekunle Johnson, joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Johnson, good afternoon, and thank you so much for your time.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So I guess we hear a lot of news of efforts of the federal government, but it will be what impact has that made? How much and how many people could actually come out to say, yes, we are feeling the impacts of the federal government's intervention?
Thank you once again. You recall only recently the Ministry of Trade and Investment and the Bank of Industry announced some of the palliative that Mr. President had approved as a result of this subsidy removal last year. And they're about to start their execution now. The implementation is on is beginning on that. So there's the grant aspect, which is the presidential grant scheme, which seeks to give 1,000 MSMEs in every local government about 50,000 now to the macro businesses. That's a grant they are not expected to pay back. There is the presidential MSME scheme. Now, this gives up to ₦1 million to an MSME. The collateral is it is a very simplified collateral system. You collect up to ₦1 million. You have 3 years to use that facility and return it at a single digit of 9%. There is also the manufacturing scheme, which gives ₦1 billion to 75 small businesses. ₦1 billion for 75 businesses that want to expand their businesses. And this is also at another 9%. This is at 5% for a tenure of 5 years. Now, in all of these schemes, one thing is very consistent. The fact that the one for the MSMEs at 9%, that's a single digit rate. The one for the manufacturing sector, 9% as a single digit rate. And the one for the very, very tiny nano businesses, 50,000, those ones are just actual grants, basically. And don't also forget that the Bank of Industry has generously said that they, on their own, will also give out their own ₦75 billion at 9% to MSMEs. This is aside what the federal government has given. They will match with their own ₦75 billion of their own funds to MSMEs at the same 9%. And an MSME can collect up to ₦5 million, basically, at a very, very, very reduced collateral system. So you don't have to bring arm and a leg before you are able to access that fund. May you also recall, if I may also let us remember that a few months ago, we announced a partnership with Access Bank. They are supposed to give 50 billion naira of their own funds, though not at single digits. They were supposed to give it at 15%. Now, this is, in our own opinion, better off than the 27-28% market rate. They're supposed to give us at 15%, 50 billion naira. Any SMEs that want to access that fund from about 1 million to 3 million without any collateral. Then from 3 million to about 10 million naira, you would have to provide some form of simple collateral as well. That also you are allowed 3 years to pay back. What we had agreed with Access Bank as partners is that this particular loan, you were going to watch the performance of the loan for a year, and after which they'll probably possibly move it to about 100 billion. That scheme was actually supposed to launch today as we speak. But if you recall the death of Albert Wigwe, the Access Co MD. So as a result of that, both Access Bank and the presidency decided that that tallies a bit, and maybe at some point next week, a new date for the scheme to begin will be announced to the entire public. Because the Access Bank, if I may say, if you can give me a minute, Access Bank and Herbert in particular have been a great support, pillar of support to everything.
Wow. Well, caught up in it's still a grieving moment for family and friends of Dr. Herbert Wigwe. And of course, here on Channels Television, we do not take that lightly. We commiserate with the family. It's okay, we do understand, Mr. Johnson. We share in this grief because obviously Dr. Herbert touched many lives, and so we do grieve with you right there, Mr. Johnson. I wonder if you feel you can continue with, or we could postpone this, if you feel you are not up to finishing up the conversation. Mr. Johnson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I think
I'd
rather go ahead because I think if Herbert was here, he would rather I go ahead. If you recall, the role is played in supporting whatever it is that we do from the presidency for MSMEs cannot be overlooked. I mean, this is spanned over many years. I also recall when 2 years ago, I particularly was ill in the hospital and was at the point of death. It was this same Access Bank and Herbert that came through and took care of all my hospital bills and ensured that I'm alive today. So for this same man to leave us with his wife and son, just heartbreaking. But I'll continue with the interview. So we were supposed to launch that scheme today, but we've agreed to do it at a later time, sometime next week. We're expecting the management of the bank to come back to us with another date. So that is one pillar of support as well. And the same Access Bank have also committed to the annual MSME Awards, which Mr. Vice President always represents the President. They have committed to taking all the winners to Netherlands this year, in their different sectors, to go and sit down for a month and learn whatever trade it is that they are doing for exactly a month. So, for instance, if you're a manufacturer, they will take you to a manufacturer of repute in Netherlands. If you are into creative industry, they will take you somewhere there. If you are into IT, but for a month, they think that they will take all of them to these places to ensure that they actually learn their trade and see what is obtainable in every other place in the world, and are able to bring that back to the country to replicate what it is that they've seen. And only last week, the Minister for Youth was on Channels, I believe, where she was talking about launching a youth bank. And we are also in partnership with them. We are playing a very passive role with regards that the ministry, that's Ministry for Youth, and the Bank of Industry, and I think AAFDB are the ones leading that charge. The essence is to ensure that you have a bank that is youth-centric, and youths in businesses, both women and youths in businesses, are able to go to this bank and access funds very quickly. So this is something that Mr. President has mandated, and every party involved, they are working very closely to ensure that this is, I recall Minister saying that this should go live sometime in April. But the details of that are being worked on and will be shared with the entire public.
Yeah, well, but it would be nice to know, Mr. Johnson, who can participate and how they can participate, because you're targeting small businesses and job seekers. These are people who are not, they don't have a lot. A lot of them do not really go into watching TV and, waiting for all of that. So how do you reach them? And what is required of them? How minimal is it for them to be able to access some of these platforms?
Okay, so if you recall, the National MSME Clinics, it's now called the National Expanded MSME Clinics. Now, what we do is the VP goes to states where we do a lot of publicity. We get MSMEs across local governments. The state gets small businesses across their different local governments. They come for exhibitions. They come and participate in these agencies like NAFDAC, CAC, BOI, and Nexim Bank, NEPC. All our partners and the private sector, they come there and let these MSMEs know what sort of mandates that they have and how the MSMEs can actually benefit. We launched one in Benue on the 9th of January, and on the spot, there were on-the-spot grants for SMEs there as well. So from our private sector, some MSMEs walked away with as much as 2 million naira on the spot as grants for their businesses, while others walked away with several other amounts that I do not have the figures to right now. But those are avenues to also avenues and channels to also let the world know that this. So, for instance, at that clinic, the Bank of Industry was able to tell MSMEs, because they came from across different local governments, to say that these are our mandates. You can come and collect this X amount if you have so and so. If you do not have so and so, you can collect this amount without collateral. Access Bank did the same thing. So we use these clinics as an avenue because it attracts the apex. That is, Mr. VP goes to represent Mr. Vice President. So virtually everyone is there. And what we're now doing is ensuring that we communicate with the MSMEs, the very small MSMEs, the nanos. We communicate with them in different languages. Our media and the messages that go out now comes in different dialects, such as Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, and even Pidgin. So we try to ensure that no one is left behind. No, there's no ambiguity into what we are doing and what we are not doing. There's no ambiguity into what any agency's mandate is and what is not. So we want MSMEs to key in. It is better to have a situation where we have not done enough as opposed to do nothing. So that's the situation where we are right now. We ensure that using the clinics as a platform, we will have one that we're supposed to go to next week on the 22nd in Ogun State, and to be followed by the one in Borno State on the 5th of March. So these are also avenues, and the agencies themselves now go out to do this publicity and sensitizations to the different clinics, to different MSMEs. I know that Smedan, I was in touch with the DG Smedan a few days ago. I know that he's been moving around the country to sensitize MSMEs on some of their mandates and how they can help. I know ITF is doing the same thing. Standard Organization is doing the same thing. We're in partnership with NEPC to launch a particular scheme that will ensure that MSMEs that are producing certain things have off-takers abroad, where they can just be the middlemen, link them with off-takers abroad, so that it is the MSMEs just have to produce. They already have a waiting market for them over there abroad, and then the funds are repatriated here.
All right, thank you so much for that, Mr. Temitola Adekunle Johnson, a Senior Special Assistant to the President on Job Creation and MSMEs. Of course, we'll be looking forward to that launch and the expansion of the SME clinic.
Thank you very much, Kela. Thank you.
All right, now let's go to the markets now, see the market numbers for intraday, how that's looking this afternoon. If we could have those numbers, beginning, of course, from a boost at the NGX from the bear dominating the market yesterday. We see sentiments have changed at intraday. We see it at almost 2% in the green. And yes, we've gone past 101 to 103 at intraday, 103,711.38 after gaining 1.97% at intraday. That's for the NGX. South Africa is on the flip side, going to 72,895.05. It was down 0.24%. Then we look at Egypt at this time and see that it's more than 1% in the green, 1.06%. That's for Egypt, and then Kenya is, however, also in the green, 0.21%. This, of course, is the closing numbers for Tuesday. Now, let's settle on Nigeria now and look at the fixed income space this afternoon. And to discuss that, we have the Vice President, Sales and Trading, Zcrest Group, Ajibola Tobiosho. Good afternoon, Ajibola. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, so how's the market? What's the sentiment at this time at the fixed income market?
Okay, so it's bearish. What I mean by that, it means that we've seen less appetite for fixed income instruments, and that's because market expect that there will be a lot of selling by the DMO and the CBN in the near term. So people are being wary and buying bonds and financial instruments at very low level. So it's been very bearish.
How's the yield? How's the yield at this time? Can you give us a picture of how it's looking like? Oh, okay. It seems we have a little bit of freezing pictures right there, a technical glitch with Jibola. But so let's continue, and perhaps we could have her, Let's see what's going on at the Middle East market. Looking at the numbers right there, it's green for Abu Dhabi, 9,384.01. It's up 0.35%. Dubai is also green at this time, 0.16%, 4,225.85. Looking at other parts of that market, Saudi Arabia, it's a green one for the Middle East at intraday, 0.22% at 12,432.12. Qatar also green, more than 1%, 1.18% there, 10,212.26. That's for Qatar. I think we have Toby back. Can you hear me, Toby?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, yes. I was asking about the yields at this time. How's that looking? I know there was a drop by late last week, but I mean, are we back up?
Like I said, it's going back up. It's going back up. Market expectation is that there will be much more surprises from the DMO and CBN, like we saw last week at the Treasury bills auction that was held for Wednesday, and then floating 1 trillion as against the 417 billion that was scheduled. So the market is expecting more shocks, as in more surprises from them, and there's a lot of, people are trading with a lot of caution. Buying interest has really, really dwindled. A lot of people are waiting for the outcome of the MPC, and as such, I expect that this should spill over to interest rates, market interest rates. So yes, it's been very, very bearish in the market. Yield is as high as 18% for long-term bonds, and Treasury bills actually came down slightly to around 17%, but yields as high as 18% in the market right now.
13%. Well, it's still
18,
lower than what we had.
1 and 8.
Oh, 18. Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's still 18%. Close to what we had last week. I think last week we had about 19%. So,
so 19, that was on the short-term bill,
okay.
Short-term instrument. That was for Treasury bills.
Yeah.
As at when Treasury bills were trading at 19%, bond yield was still around 17.25.
Okay.
But right now, this week, we can see that yield has elevated by 75 basis points to 18% for long-term instrument. That's strictly bonds. I'm speaking of bonds here, 30-year, 15-year instruments.
So do we see this moving our investors back to the fixed income space? We just saw that the NGX recovered this afternoon.
Yes, so, we would expect that investors will start coming back to fixed income space. However, we expect that their focus will be more on treasury bills and short-term bonds. So we would expect that more and more people would seek out to, lock in yield for the 2027 bond, the 2028, maybe a max of 2029 maturity in terms of bond. Or for the other longer dated bonds, it may still hover around where it is. But like I said, a lot of the sell-off that we are seeing at the moment is largely because of markets being unwary. They are still waiting for more shocks that might come from the DMO and CBN, like they did for Treasury bills. So until that is done, or until the MPC is held and until a new calendar is released, we expect that this bearishness will continue for the long end of the bonds.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, Jibola Tobiosho, Vice President, Sales and Trading, Zcrest Group. Thank you for your views this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on now to other markets. We go to the United States, where U.S. stock futures notched higher. And we see the number here. Unlike what we had yesterday, we see that the futures are up 0.21%, 38,414. S&P 500 is also in the green. Recovery after that CPI was released yesterday, 0.39%. And NASDAQ even looking much better, 0.62% yesterday. So, but let's see how yesterday was with our correspondent in Washington, Maria Bird.
The U.S. stock market took a drop on Tuesday as the Dow Jones was down at 1.35%, the S&P 500 down at 1.37%, and the heavy tech NASDAQ took a nosedive of 1.8%. It is clear that investors are a bit concerned about the most recent inflation report, which showed inflation over the month of January. This inflation report means that we could be seeing an uptick in the prices over the next few days and weeks ahead. This inflation report has concerns that we could be seeing a volatile food and energy industry continuing into the second quarter of fiscal year 24. This has investors concerned that the market might not be as stable as once was expected in the beginning of 2024.
So I guess in the coming days, we'll be talking about the possibility of the Fed cutting rates. Is it closer or further now, with this inflation? But now let's go to Asia, see how that market is doing or did today. Because of the time difference, obviously they're close. So most Asian Pacific market fell today, Wednesday, with the exception of Hong Kong, after hotter than expected U.S. inflation once again sent Wall Street tumbling overnight. We saw that U.S. consumer price index climbed yesterday, 0.1% a 12-month basis and 0.3% for a month-on-month basis. So looking at the number for Asia, it's in the red for Nikkei 225. This we celebrated yesterday, crossing that 38,000, first time since 1991, at 0.69%. Kospi also in the red, 1.10%. At 2,000. Hang Seng index, however, in the green, almost 1% in the green, 0.84% at 15,000. Shanghai follows suit at 2,865.90, 1.28% in the green, while Australia is in the red, 0.74%, 7,547.70. Now let's go to Europe, where the world's ongoing conflicts have brought defense spending to a new record high. Where are they spending the money? Chip joins us now to tell us. Hi, Chip. Good afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Annie. Well, defense spending reached a new world record of $2.2 trillion a year. Now, that number comes from a report by the London-based International Institute for Strategic Studies. It says the increase is mostly due to NATO spending linked to the war in Ukraine. Now, that report by the military think tank was released just days after former U.S. President Donald Trump said that he would encourage Russia to do whatever it wants in a NATO country that was not meeting its financial obligations for the bloc. Now, Trump didn't name that country, but only 10 countries, so about a third of NATO members, are meeting their obligations of 2% of GDP for defense spending. And Europe's largest economy, Germany, isn't one of them. But we've seen Berlin ramp up military spending in the last 2 years to equip its military and also to provide more support to Ukraine as Kyiv tries to resist Russian aggression.
Means for the defense industry, more spending, is it good for the industry?
Well, given the ongoing war and geopolitical crises, the outlook for the industry is positive. And the continent's leaders are also considering what a second Trump presidency could mean. They know that Europe may need to rely on itself more for defense. The EU's defense industry shrunk in the post-Cold War years because no one thought that the continent would see a war like the one being waged by Russia in Ukraine. And this week, the CEO of Rheinmetall reportedly said that Europe will need at least 10 years before it can defend itself. In fact, most of the military support we have seen for Kiev has come from Washington. So that's why we will continue seeing European nations ramp up their defense spending. In fact, today, NATO defense ministers are meeting in Brussels. 18 of the countries there are reportedly expected to say that they will meet the NATO target for defense spending this year. Now, that would be 8 more countries than last year.
All right, let's switch to the markets and see what investors are doing.
Any European stocks are expected to trade lower today. Now, that comes after U.S. inflation data for January came in higher than was forecast by analysts. Now, that means that the prospect of the U.S. Central Bank lowering rates in May has diminished. Market watchers now say that the U.S. Fed may only start cutting rates in the second half of this year. And here in Europe, investors will be watching how and if China chooses to respond to an EU proposal to sanction 3 Chinese firms that are accused of aiding Russia. Beijing has already released a statement saying that it would consider any sanctions from the EU on the Chinese companies illegal. Now, investors will be watching that to see if EU-China trade tensions are worsening.
All right, Chief, thank you for that update. We'll also be watching to see, which way it goes with China. Now let's come back to the continent just before we head to the crypto space and talk about inflation. It's still a big deal on the continent, in the world anyway. Yesterday we had that of the United States. Well, Ghana's inflation came out today and it was unexpectedly up in January for the first time in 6 months, reducing the chances of another rate cut next month. Well, they just did a rate cut last month, so I wonder if they will regret that now. Annual inflation quickened to 23.5% from 23.2% in December. This was announced by the government statistician Samuel Kobina Anim. He said this in the capital, Accra. The International Monetary Fund will be releasing more funds to Ghana in 2024 as part of the Fund Support Program, while the World Bank is expected to disburse up to $550 million, with $300 million going to development policy operations and $250 million for the Ghana Financial Stability Fund. Meanwhile, today, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo has announced a cabinet reshuffle, relieving the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta of his duties. Based on reports that has been leaked to the media, Mohammed Amin Adam, the current Minister of State at the Finance Ministry and former Deputy Energy Minister responsible for the petroleum sector, will succeed Mr. Ofori-Atta in the role. The move comes as Ghana grapples with its most severe economic crisis, and Ofori-Atta has been instrumental in steering the country through debt restructuring efforts. Ofori-Atta has been Minister for Finance since January 2017, was appointed by President Akufo-Addo following the Ghanaian general election in December 2016. In Kenya, a bit of good news as the shilling strengthened as much as 102.50 to 153.50 to the dollar, a level it last traded at in late November, and that's compared to Tuesday's close of 155.50. According to data that was shared, Kenya raised $1.5 billion from the new Eurobond sale, with an order book exceeding $6 billion, but it was forced to pay a high price with a double-digit yield. The government has said it will buy up to $1.4 billion of its $2 billion international bond, which is due in June this year, after it launched a tender offer last week. Other factors supporting the currency include foreign inflows into a 70 billion shilling infrastructure bond on sale, and the central bank talking up the shilling as it raised interest rates again last week. Let's go to the crypto space now. First of all, looking at some of those top stories. Bitcoin, of course, is on the top of that. It regains its $1 trillion market cap as cryptocurrency hits over a 2-year high. If we could have the top news first, the Bitcoin has regained that $1 trillion market cap in circulation. The value of all Bitcoin in circulation, that's the market cap for today, rose above $1 trillion, and that's the first time since 2021. Remember yesterday, or was it 2 days ago, it did hit $50,000 since 2021. I can't believe it's been 2021, but that's a big one for the crypto market at this time. Another top news is the Repo is set to buy New York crypto trust company to expand U.S. options. So Ripple is in the news again. The acquisition plan will grab a company with New York trust charter and will expand the business it's allowed to conduct in the U.S. And potentially letting it move beyond its well-known role as payment network. And I think still in the United States now, the Treasury official urges Congress for more power against crypto crime, to win investors' confidence. The United States Treasury has expressed concerns regarding crypto in illicit finance. And the Treasury's Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, Brian Nelson, emphasized this request in his prepared statement for a congregational hearing. Now let's go back to the big news, which is that crypto, there you have it, the crypto market cap beyond 1 trillion naira. And I think we have joining us for this conversation is Gilbert. Gilbert, hi Gilbert, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon and happy Valentine's Day.
I wish you the same, Gilbert. I don't see your red though.
My coffee cup though is red.
Okay. Well, Bitcoin decided to celebrate, give us a good celebration this Valentine. The market cap has exceeded 1 trillion since 2021. We've been waiting for this.
Yeah, I think the time we have been waiting for is almost here. And I like this conversation because it's more like a follow-up on the last conversation we had, which in that conversation, you told me most persons were expecting Bitcoin to break down to 30. And then I validated that with a couple of market structure that was available to play. Which one was the inverse head and shoulder, which is a reversal pattern, and also the bullish spinner. And so, yes, the market has become overly interesting, but then it was quite anticipated for those who really understand market structure and price action, and then more of triangle trading, because I really see these things more like, fundamental investors always leave their trail. They leave what they are doing for technical investors to pick their trail. And that was why we're able to capture this. And then the market is responding accordingly too.
So do you see this as a bull run, or is it a dead cat's jump and then we'll be back to our retreat?
Okay, very interesting enough. They are giving levels I want people to pay attention to. First of all, 17K was market bottom. At 24K, I remember I've had this conversation here before. I was like, this is the beginning of a bull run. I say, yes, not your typical runway bull market, but the beginning of a bull run. And that 24K was also the level where institutional investors began entering into the market. And so if the market has moved 24 hold down to about 50, what was such a rally? This is typically how a bull market runs. We have major buys, momentum is built, and then we have more upside surge and then less pullback. This is actually what the bull market is, and we are experiencing the bull market. Understand that most persons rather think a blow-off top is rather a bull market. That is after the Bitcoin have surpassed its former all-time high. But the thing is, if that is the time any investor out there is coming into the market, you have lost your margin of safety. Especially if you already experience or you're skilled and you're still on the sidelines. It means you're going to FOMO into the market the same way every novice trader who knows little or nothing about the market will be doing. So this is actually a bull market. Yes, not your typical runway bull market, but then the typical runway bull market is just here around the corner.
All right, Gilbert. I'm sure a lot of investors will be happy, but a bull market doesn't mean that you would just jump into it and make profit. You have to customize your moves. Thank you so much, Gilbert Jopata.
Skill and an investment plan.
Exactly. You need an investment plan. All right, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. So that's it on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Incorporated today. Well, good news for the crypto investors, good news for the NGX, but I mean, be very watchful. That's it. Thank you so much. Let's do it again tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'll be back on Business Morning during our Sunrise Daily, and we'll do another round of business. I'm John Makwa. Enjoy the rest. Enjoy your Valentine.